Hello. The EU is now finally moving towards the endgame of its negotiations on the Clean Energy Package, the rulebook for energy in Europe up to the year 2030. The European Parliament and the Member States have started their so-called trilogues, where they sit down together and they try to align their positions on what should the EU's renewables target in 2030 be, how should we meet it, and so on. Now, you may recall that the Clean Energy Package includes new rules on electricity markets to make them more fit for renewables. Because the rules governing today's electricity markets, of course, were designed for a world when most electricity came from large conventional power plants. That's changing, of course. We've more variable generation, we've more distributed generation, and so the rules for electricity markets have got to change too. That is the market design bit of the Clean Energy Package. Now, the European Parliament have just voted on it, so we thought now would be a good moment to update you on how it's looking and to give you some idea of what we can expect. We can expect four main things. First, new rules on how we trade electricity. These rules are going to be harmonised now, and in such a way that it's going to be much easier for those generating renewables to sell their output closer to the moment of production. This will help reduce forecast errors, it will help reduce grid balancing costs, and there'll be more cross-border trading of electricity as well, so that renewables can flow from where we're generating them to where are the large consumption centres. Two, there'll be new rules on which technologies inject power into the grid first. Priority dispatch for all existing renewables will remain in place. But for new renewables that are installed from 2020 onwards, there'll be new rules about how energy is curtailed when the grid is congested. And renewables are going to be curtailed last, and we will be fully compensated for the revenues that we lose when we are curtailed. Three, balancing responsibility. From 2020, there will be no more exemptions from balancing responsibility either for new renewables or today's existing renewables. We will be balancing responsible. There'll be no more exemptions from the compensation that we'll have to pay to the TSOs, the transmission system operators, when we deviate from our projected generation. Now, of course, this might imply increased costs for smaller wind farms. So they might need to delegate this to third parties, and we're very conscious of this, so we're going to be working hard as the negotiations continue between the Parliament and the Council to ensure that those costs are kept to a minimum and any increased costs that smaller wind farms incur are fair. Four, capacity payments that governments pay to coal and gas plants to be on standby. The European Parliament says capacity payments should be a last resort only, and governments should only bring in capacity mechanisms when there has been a Europe-wide assessment of security of supply risks in that country. The Member States, on the other hand, say, no, we can bring them in when we've done a purely national assessment of security of supply risks. The Parliament and the Member States disagree also on when we should start applying a CO2 standard to capacity payments. The Parliament say that as from 2020 there should be no capacity payments to any new coal plant and no new capacity payments to any existing coal plant from 2025. The Member States say, not so fast. For the new coal plants, only let's stop it from 2025, and for the existing ones from 2030. So as you can see, the Parliament and the Member States disagree on quite a few things here. There are still going to be some tough negotiations. But those negotiations are not really going to gather pace until the second half of this year. Now we, WindEurope, are going to carry on urging both the Parliament and the Member States to ensure that they are putting in place rules for electricity markets that give us renewables fair competition with conventional power generation. It is getting easier and cheaper to integrate variable renewables in the energy system, but we must have the right rules for electricity markets in order for that to happen. Thank you for your support.